Alright, so I'm sick, so if I sound weird, that's why. Regardless, this is gonna be a video about 2021 car news, and I'm gonna rank as much of it that I can remember from best to worst. So obviously I'm just gonna tell you what I personally think was the greatest highlight of this year, which was the newest generation Nissan Z, or 400Z, or whatever you want to call it. Point is, we've heard about it from the year before, but this year just confirmed all the good things we were hearing. We're not just rumors, but the fact that in this terrible, terrible world where it seems like us as consumers are just getting shirked and everyone is just kind of just covering their ears and going la 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 la, Nissan is at least listening to their customers. And who would have guessed the big brain play of listening to your customers actually gets positive reception? Not only that, but amongst a lot of my friends and a lot of forums, this is one of the most wish listed sports cars right now. I almost always see people say, oh, this is the one I want, this is the one I want, oh, I used to want this car but now I want this one, because they're so sick and tired of having their trust betrayed, that after seeing a company that doesn't do that, it's like a breath of fresh air. So definitely this deserves the top entry. So in other news, let's see, the Porsche Cayman GT4RS, that's another car that was announced. Great car, fantastic, can't wait to see on the road. Don't really have anything else to say about this. It just looks like another great entry from Porsche. The next car is also a German car in this list, which is the Mercedes AMG GT Black Series. Black Series holds a lot of respect and value when it comes to Mercedes cars. A lot of the older Black Series models, such as the SL65, which is even a kind of underrated one, they still go for way more than a normal SL would go for, just because it has the Black Series moniker. And this is true of a lot of Black Series cars, whether it's the SLS or you get the point, alright? So this car on paper, not just in paper, in actual performance, it was a great car. It held the Nürburgring record temporarily. It got it beaten, but it got it as a front mid mounted car. Yeah, I know it's technically mid-engine because of the front, it's behind the front axle, but it's still the drive in front of the driver, alright? Front mid, shut up. So this car, because of stupid inflation, was going not for twice its MSRP, but like 2.5 times. They were selling for anywhere from 600, that's a low number actually, they were going for around 670 grand to around 750 grand, and that was all over the United States. I tried to find one that was actually going for retail, and its retail price is $320, and you're probably like, yeah, Bladed, that's a pipe dream, the car just came out. Look, 400 or like even 500, right? But anything beyond that, I was like, this is not reasonably worth trying to chase down anymore. This is just stupid. And I'm now Black Series list, but that's worth it. You know, will I get one of these when they're in the future? Probably not, because then the actual Black Series price is gonna kick in, and by that point, and these start going north of like $1 million, I'd rather just get like literally anything else, like a Zonda or old Koenigsegg. So this one definitely has a little bitterness attached to it, just because it was a car I failed to get this year. So yep, yeah, that's just, but it's a great car though, so it's still third place. The fourth place car on this list is the Toyota GR86, and you know, this car's not bad, but it's also still not turboed, and the whole excuse that Subaru still tries to use, which is, because obviously this car is jointly developed by Toyota and Subaru's gonna sell their own version of it as well. They constantly keep saying stuff like, oh, well then it'll directly compete with the WRX, and it's like, the WRX is a 4-door, all-wheel drive car. It's gonna always have its market, right? The BRZ, the FRS, well, the FRS doesn't exist anymore, but you know what I mean, the Hanchi Roku platform, that's always what I call it on this channel. We're just gonna call it that for all 3 cars. The Hanchi Roku can absolutely exist as a turbo from factory and not negatively compete with the other models that are being sold in the brand. It will be fine, alright? It's still a good car though. Yeah, they upped the displacement, it's still gonna be reliable, it's still gonna be a fantastic chassis to corner around, and it's always good to get a nice update on a car that's already pretty good. That's why it's closer to the best end of this video than the worst end. It's definitely still an above average news for this year, so I'm fine with it. Now we're kind of getting to the middle ground of this video, which is the Subaru WRX, and the new WRX is, yeah, I personally myself am on this middle ground. My main gripe with this car is that it's just hideous. Like, I'm just gonna say it right now, it's very wonky looking. The fender flares on it, even if you paint match it, I still don't like the shape of them. They're too angular, and when you look at the diffuser, the shape of the taillights, and the shape of everything else of the car, so you have this conflicting body language. And I'm not the only one who's thought this. You know, David, that dude in blue, who's also local to Atlanta, he's also made a video about it that I can link. He basically says more or less the same thing. Another thing with the car is that it still uses a CVT. They try to call it like a Subaru special transmission 8-speed, but it's still actually just a CVT. And now, thankfully, most people who buy Subaru WRXs are just gonna buy manuals. That's the easiest way to avoid this problem, and thankfully it still offers offers a manual, and it has a new engine for once, so it's finally a newer generation. Is it as powerful as people wanted? To some people, yes, to other people, no. That's what you're gonna have to determine. At this price point though, I think it's okay, you know, because it's not a super expensive car, my disappointment was not that immeasurable. And then we come to the Chevy C8 Corvette base model. So the Z06, oops, I forgot to put that car on this list. I would have put it probably like 2.5 or something, but yeah, we'll just talk about the Stingray. So they're still struggling with catching up to, even though this is technically a 2020 car, right? To be produced at the rate it's supposed to be produced. To be fair, it's not something Chevy can control. Now, another issue is these cars still bend wheels, which was a thing they knew for a whole generation on the C7s. And if these cars actually sold for 60 grand, I can see why they were originally sold for 60 grand, because that means there was a lot of cost cutting, one of which being the wheels were probably still cast. But because these cars are so ridiculously marked up to the point that some of them are going over 100 grand anyways, it's insane that you still don't have forged wheels on these cars from factory. It's really sad when rep wheels are probably stronger than these OEM wheels. If you put one of these cars on reps, you are probably better off than driving on OEM. That is like one of the only instances where that might be a true thing I could say. So you win some and you lose some, because this was the biggest clickbait of this year. So the new Nissan GT-R reveal. So Nissan gave us a great announcement with the Z this year, but they also gave us a giant L this year because they, why are you like this? They gave us yet another special edition of the R35 GT-R, and instead of just telling us it was another R35, they like baited us so hard until I think, what, a couple days before, but they're like, oh, by the way, lower your expectations, it's probably just an R35. And then lo and behold, it was. Like, even the most diehard Godzilla fanboy, they're running out of copium to huff. They're just rolling their eyes and they're like, just give us the R36 already. Because here's the way I see it. So the few people who still are huffing copium and trying to defend this car, Nissan has proven they can listen to us once based on customer feedback. We can push them to do it again. And I think if you truly, truly love Nissan and you truly, truly love JDM culture, you should want to push them. Because I know someone in the comments is probably like, Bladed, I can buy an R35, put some bolt-ons on, and it's still relevant. You shouldn't have to do mods after the matter of fact, because you should remember that's not a viable option depending on where you live in the world. Some places in Europe, even Japan itself, you may not be able to drive a heavily modified car or even a lightly modified car. Therefore, out of the box, cars are measured stock to stock. So yeah, you can buy an old one and mod it, but that's not the same as just taking the actual new one and upgrading it, because that's more important in my opinion from a long-term technological standpoint. And from a Japanese pride standpoint, this is one of their only supercars. I say that in quotes because some people don't consider it a supercar, but if you really think about it, their only main competitor in that market at this point, where I will just out of pity give it the supercar moniker. And I think for the sake of longevity and keeping, it's like for the sake of Japan's pride, just make an R36 is what I'm trying to say. And finally, the final car in this video, some of you probably knew this was going to be here, and a lot of you have asked me for my opinion on this, the Acura Integra. This is not an Integra, so alright. So thankfully, a lot of people are not defending this car, and I can tell that, you know, JDM culture moving into the 2020s has been so backstabbing and so betraying and so painful that a lot of JDM fans are finally getting, like, they're running out of copium to huff because they had their patience tested to the limits. Heard the NSX and they're like, okay, this is gonna be great, and then it's not great, and then it doesn't sell, and they're like, alright, well, maybe the Supra will be better, and then the Supra comes out, and the Supra is not bad, but it's not great either. It just kind of, you know, moseyed along, where to this day it's still not really saving JDM culture by any means. So they just kind of buried that too. And then the Z hasn't quite released yet, so they're still waiting on that. That's a big W though. The Integra though, it's nice to have more than one W, right? Like, oh wow, if the Z can give us a W, let's have more hope. And then we just got another L, and yeah, JDM fans, I feel a little bad for them, because this is something that Acura should have known already. You would have thought the failure of the NSX second generation would have taught them something. Like, oh, you know, listen to your customers when you design a car and stay true to tradition. The NSX did not stay true to tradition, no matter how many fanboys vehemently defend it. The numbers show it was not a good selling car, so much so to the point that Acura likely blames us still and not the themselves, and they're gonna be like, well, no, third generation then, even though it was their own fault for literally not listening to us when they literally had owners of the first generation NSX telling them what they wanted on the second generation one. The same issue happened here with the Integra. So a lot of my friends who love Integras, they made a promise a long ago where they're like, I don't care what the new Integra is gonna be, as long as it's similar enough to what we had, just more futuristic, I'm gonna buy it. Like, they're loyalists. People who like certain cars are obviously gonna be loyal to the brand. Even those people, when I caught up with them, I was like, what do you think of the new Integra? They're like, don't talk to me. That's not an Integra. I want to laugh, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my god, Acura, you did not just do this again. So it's a 4-door car, right? It's straight up a sedan. That's the least of my problems. It's not 2 liters, it's 1.5 liters. Yeah, whatever. It doesn't look very sporty at all. It doesn't even come close. Like, if they just marketed it as something other than an Integra, it might have been okay. So here's my main problem as someone who likes to use numbers, but also keeps up with the car market. Acura has trouble selling even 4-door sedans. They sell mostly SUVs. If they already struggle to sell 4-door sedans, what's the point of throwing another generic looking, forgettable 4-door sedan into your lineup? Because here's the thing, the loyalists who wanted an actual Integra aren't going to buy it, but the boomers who buy your 4-door sedans, the few remaining ones I should say, are you really gonna upsell them on this car? Like, can you successfully convince them to buy this car over just a normal like TLX or whatever other sedan Acura makes? This was the state of cars this year and car announcements. This is what I rank everything. You can agree, you can disagree, sure. If you enjoyed the video and you love cars and car content, make sure to subscribe. I've got plenty more coming into next year. I've got plenty more that you can go back through if you haven't watched already. Other than that though, thanks for watching and see y'all next time. Blade Angel out.